to Meet the Candidates. I'm Jim Verzino. I'm here today with Tyler Colford, candidate for state senate from Windham County. Welcome, Tyler, and thanks for abiding by Red Shirt Day.
Thank you. It's nice meeting you, Jim.
So tell us what party you're running with, what office you're running for, what your, I use the term territory, that's probably not the right word.
Well, I'm running for state senate in Windham County for GOP, for the Republican Party, and yeah, I mean,
So it's the whole county. It's a
so
Windham County only seat.
It's the entire county. Goes from like Halifax and near the Massachusetts border up to Rockingham.
Okay, so basically it's a Windham County seat.
Yep.
Okay, and each county has 2 state senators. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so right now is one seat open or are both seats open?
There's 2 seats open, but there are incumbents running.
Right.
Yeah.
So are you the only Republican in the race?
I am the only Republican in the race.
Okay, so who else is running? Why don't you tell me first give us the lay of the land, if you will.
Okay, so the 2 incumbents are Becca Balint and Jeanette White, and there's an independent, Beverly Stone is also running, and I think there are some others, but I haven't got the updated ballot yet.
Okay.
So, and me.
So when voters go into the booth, they're going to say vote for 2, and the two with the most votes
will become.
Okay, so you're not necessarily running against Becca or running against Jeanette?
Jeanette, yep.
So you're not necessarily running against I can't say to you, tell me why you're better than your opponent, and you can't point to one person.
No.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
So why don't we go it this way then? Tell me why you're a good choice for me as a voter.
Because I've been a Vermonter my entire life, and I've been in the working class since I graduated high school, so I know what their struggles are. I'm an adamant reader as far as Austrian economics go. Murray Rothbard, Ludwig von Mises, Thomas Sowell, and Adam Smith, as well as others, Friedrich Hayek. So
why Austrian economics?
I think that they bring it to life.
Okay.
They don't really focus on formulas and like the mathematical side of everything. They look at it praxeologically, seeing like because of this cause there will be this effect, and show historical data for it.
Okay. So would you say, what would you say are your sort of, I always ask the first, when people come out, once I know sort of what they're running for and what area, what do you consider your passion issues? I mean, you mentioned economics.
Yeah, individual liberty.
Okay.
Like, the government should really just protect our property rights, and that extends back to ourselves, because we own ourselves. And anything that stems from that is basically found in the Constitution. I think property rights is a human right. Doesn't matter what race, creed, sex you are. Every human has the right to their own property, and all the other rights found in the Constitution stem from that one issue.
So give me some examples. What do you mean by every other right in the Constitution?
Freedom of speech, the right to bear arms, the right to privacy, like search and seizure and stuff.
Okay, so how does property rights relate to freedom of speech, for example?
Well, since we own ourselves, we own the words that we speak, and regardless of whether or not they might be hateful or stupid, it's still that person's right to say what he or she feels, as long as they're not impeding on someone else's right to property.
Okay. So I had someone from I interviewed another candidate in the primaries that was in the military, and he was running as a progressive. And the interesting juxtaposition there was, what's it like to run as a progressive when you're inside an organization that is relatively conservative?
Yeah.
So I'm going to turn that around for you. What's it like to run as would you describe yourself as a conservative? I don't want to use that term. I don't want to put that term in your mouth, but
I've been registered as a Republican since I turned 18.
okay.
I haven't changed my registration. I have come to like a lot of the libertarian aspects and views. So I would say I'm...
So you would say you're libertarian, not
Yeah.
conservative.
Yeah.
I mean, and granted, all these labels have
They-
weird...
They've taken on a whole nother life of their own.
Right, they have.
Yeah.
So I'll use the term libertarian since you used it.
Okay.
What's it like to run? What's it like to run and be in a what I would call a progressive liberal community,
Yeah.
and run as a libertarian? What's that experience like?
Well, it's fun bar talk, I guess.
Okay, fair enough. All right. So, how are you going about your campaigning? Are you looking to get in the papers? Are you going door to door? What is it? A lot of other people that I've talked to are in very small districts. So they say, I'm going to knock on every door, and many of them do. We're knocking on every door. You can't knock on every door in Windham County. So how are you going to go about doing that?
Well, I've written letters to the editor and have sent them out pretty regularly, like one every week since I started campaigning in the primaries. And I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. So there's going to be more of those. Getting in the paper as far as interviews and on TV, podcasts. I have something lined up with the Lions of Liberty. So there's
what's called the Lions of Liberty?
Lions of Liberty.
Okay. What is that?
It's a podcast. They're primarily based out of California, but they've got listeners all over the place. They came. I was at Pork Fest in northern New Hampshire, and all the hosts were there for that as well.
I assume that's not about the meat of eating.
No, Porcupine Festival, the Libertarian.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
It was pretty fun and exciting.
So you are a libertarian. I certainly have some. It's not about me, but I have some of my own beliefs that I believe are good libertarian, solid libertarian ways of thinking. How does a libertarian answer, or you could say answer the question about things that we share, such as roads? Currently we share education. Maybe you may or may not believe public education is an appropriate use of private funds, since we're forced to pay into that system whether we want to or not. So first of all, big picture. And you can use an example like roads if you want to, or you can answer it sort of big picture. How does a libertarian work with and talk about and have ideas about things that we have to share as a community?
Yeah. Well, as far as education goes, I think the state and federal governments have too much handle on our public education. I think it should be community-based if there is any public education. I'm not a huge fan of the voucher system either, which is kind of weird hearing that, but I am all for privatizing education if someone wants to take that on. I mean, open up, let there be competition. Like if the public school has to downsize and then go out of business because in the same community there's a private school that's running better, then I mean, better, cheaper. If that happens, then it happens. But there's so many regulations on it, and like the Common Core, there's too much administration, and the teachers aren't getting paid enough, but the communities are paying exorbitant amounts of money. So I think if we open up competition and privatize it, it could work.
So I'm going to use you and not say Libertarians. So you're okay with a system where we all pay in
At a community level.
at a community level?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't have kids. Should I be required to pay in?
Well, you can have more of a say when it's in your community. You can go to the town hall and you can vote and address your voice at those town meetings when we're talking about this. It's a little bit harder to go to the Capitol and address and make your voice heard when it comes to that, or the federal Capitol, like
Right.
who's going to go to DC on your behalf?
Right. Right. But I guess the question I'm getting at, whether it's outsourced to a private vendor or is a publicly funded school, if we're all paying into it, and you're okay with that?
Well, if it's private, I mean, you wouldn't be paying into it. And if a private school popped up in your community and you had a public school that you were paying into and you don't have kids, and the private school ended up drawing the families away from the public into the private, and the public school had to downsize and essentially might have to go out of existence because of through austerity.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be paying into the private because it would be the families that decided to take their kids to that private school to pay. That's why I'm not for voucher systems, because we'd still be paying, all of us, into.
So each family may or may not necessarily pay into the tax system. I get it. I don't want to go too far with that.
Okay.
How about roads?
Roads, that's very tricky. I mean, it looks like Domino's is starting to build roads. Right now, our roads are pretty horrendous, so maybe Wilmington wouldn't be so opposed to having a Domino's. Well, I say Wilmington because they just barely let a Dunkin' Donuts build there. The community has been uptight as far as letting chains into their community. But if a business was to offer maintenance on the roads, they might be a little more willing to let them operate within their town.
So is Domino's Pizza building roads in places?
They are maintaining roads because they want to have their delivery cars not break down as much.
Huh. I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's happening in various communities.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you imagine, well, let me go back to your sort of passion issues, because if and when you make it to the Senate, one of the things that sort of every candidate does is kind of bring their issues to, you know, they get assigned to committees, and they start bringing their issues to those committees and try to get the laws either changed or moved. So what kind of laws, if you were to get elected, would you be trying to implement? Give me sort of the one example where you say, you know what, if I get into the Senate, I'm bringing this to committee and I'm going to try to get this passed.
Okay, well, most of the legislature that I would be trying to propose or support would be stuff that actually gets rid of laws, like the mandatory minimums. I think it actually undermines our officers and judges' ability to reason. If we appoint a judge or elect an officer or appoint an officer.
You're talking about mandatory minimum jail sentences?
Any mandatory minimum sentencing. I mean, the person who wrote the law or the...
So criminal justice, right? We're not talking about mandatory minimums of producing milk or something.
Well, anything really. I'm not really for a minimum wage either, but I am talking about justice. Okay. And I think it's putting a damper on our population, our prison population, as well as it undermines our our elected officers' abilities to actually reason. And they're the ones that are on the scene or interacting with the individuals, whether it be at a crime scene or in a court system.
Okay, all right. So mandatory minimum sentencing, that would be something that you would go in and fight for.
I would like to change that and get rid of mandatory minimums, yeah.
You know, and I got to say, that's probably something you could get bipartisan support on. I think there's a lot of people across all political specters that could see the logic in that.
Oh, I hope so.
That's really cool. That's a very good idea. Any other passion issues that you have?
Well, the right to bear arms, there's been quite a bit of hoogabaloo about the few acts that have been passed. I'm for everyone's right to keep and bear arms because it helps the populace fight against a tyrannical government, and we may not need to use arms, but it's still there, and if we take that right away from people, then there's a good chance that a tyrannical government could rise up.
So, you know, our government has the strongest military in the world, right? Like,
Yeah.
assault weapons are not really going to stop the government with its drones.
It doesn't matter. I mean, it's kind of crazy since our government's selling to civilians like warheads and chemical weapons and stuff that they're using to implement coups and overthrow.
Right.
So why do they get to sell civilians automatic weapons and military grade weapons in other countries, and then we can't have assault weapons here? I mean, it sounds hypocritical.
Well, yes, I agree. We shouldn't be doing that either. But so do you remember? It was probably 2 years ago when it was in Dallas, and I believe it was a Black Lives Matter protest, but I could be wrong. When 3 or 4 police officers were shot.
That particular incident, I'm not really vaguely familiar. I have heard about all sorts of different injustices.
The reason I ask you don't know that particular one?
I'm drawing a blank, yeah.
Okay. All right. The reason I asked was it was sort of the first time that basically people used their guns to go up against the government.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay, yeah.
And, you know, people felt very differently about that, I think, because they didn't feel like it was right for the people with the guns to be shooting the people from the government.
Well, it happens the other way around too. So
absolutely, most definitely it does. Okay, so how did you feel about the legislation that the governor signed around gun control relatively recently? It was in 2018, wasn't it? That there was what was the legislation that the governor?
I think it was late
2017? Could have been.
Whatever.
What is this? This is September? Yeah, it was within the last year, probably, right?
Yeah.
So how do you feel about that legislation? What was that legislation?
Well, it was magazine size bump stocks, and there was one other issue, I believe. But I contacted the governor via email, and I worded my concern about it and urged him not to sign it, and when he did, I sent him another letter saying that I wouldn't vote for him. And he is the Republican incumbent, and I don't really, I don't consider myself a party candidate, but I also I recognize that there's more at stake than just gun control. So we'll have to see when it comes down to it. I voted for Keith Stern in the primaries, though.
Okay.
If that says anything.
I have two questions because I didn't really follow it that closely. Was he able to do so? First of all, was it about limiting magazine size? And bump stocks? What was the actual
So
legislation?
it was banning bump stocks, and the magazine size it's kind of impossible to really uphold, but depending on whether it was for a rifle or for a pistol, it was different size magazines. But there's one type of gun, I'm drawing a blank on what it is. It's like 9mm, I think. Interchange is.
Okay.
So you can.
So it was a limit on magazine size and taking away bump stocks.
Yeah.
Was that something he was able to do by executive order, or does he have to take it
No,
through the legislature?
it went through the legislature,
Okay,
and then he
okay.
signed it into law.
Okay, got it. Okay. All right, we're out of time. We got anything else you'd like to sort of let your public know before we sign off here?
You can find me at tylercolford.com and just follow what I do, and I'd like to hear from you as well. Hear what issues matters to you.
So we can find you at tylercolford.com. Any Facebook page or anything like that?
Tyler for Senate.
Tyler for Senate
Yep.
is the Facebook?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much, Tyler. And this has been Meet the Candidates on BCTV.